Hi everyone, it's me, Darlene. Hang on. Joe is asleep, as always, and I will talk about that in a little bit. But I wanted to shut my door just so I don't wake him up. And here's what I'm going to talk about in this video. I'm going to talk a little bit about the fact that it's Joe's birthday. I would like to tell you a little bit more as to how and when we met 2 years ago. And I have some little one-liners, something new I've been saving. Instead of his conversations with me while he's asleep, during the day he'll just come out with one-liners and I can hear them. And I decided I'm just going to type that out right away and keep it in notes so that I can give you his one-liners. I have a few. What else did I want? Oh yeah, and I'm going to start by just filling you in on what happened with me and Social Security yesterday and today. Okay, first, Joe is 59. When we met in person, I had just turned 63, and then shortly after, he turned 57. Yes, because I'm 6 years older than him. I had to figure that out. And like I said, we'll talk about that in a little bit. I just want to get this out off my chest while it is fresh in my mind, because I could not believe. Yesterday I was thinking I'm going to make a video about yesterday and how things happened, and then today I said no, just drop it. You have a lot of other things to do, and you know, you're just too fucking fussy. You expect people to know their jobs. But then today another thing happened by phone, and I was like, fuck this shit, I gotta talk about this, just to give you guys an idea of how it can be. Now, I don't know, I think I am overly sensitive about poor customer service, or people who help you saying things like, you didn't do that, or you did do that, you told me that, you didn't tell me that. And it's like, you know, am I really fucking crazy? I feel like my mother is everywhere in these people. I talked to you on Monday. Hang on. Okay, I just looked back at my video, and that was on Tuesday. So I had talked about what happened during the phone call that I got, and I can't remember everything I talk about. So if you want to go watch that video, you can. But I was basically saying that I talked to a woman and she set me up for Medicare, and then told me that I didn't actually have an appointment for Social Security, but I was told several times that I had the appointment for that. She ended up taking me. Then she said I'm going to lose my August check because it was, you know, too late when I applied. Oh my God. She ended up calling me after and told me that I will be getting my August check. That was her bad and all that stuff. I did not remember giving her a routing number and my checking account number for my check to be deposited into. I just had no memory of it. I do think that I did, and like I said, I probably said I did 2 days ago. That's how my brain is now. The stress is killing me, and I can't not contain. Is that what it's called? I don't know. My short-term memory is not as good as it used to be. I can remember all the shit in the past, but my age is starting to show in my brain. All right, so I knew I had to go to the Social Security office Wednesday, which was yesterday, to bring in my marriage license, proving that I was married to Andy, and so I can be collecting his check legitimately, you know, not faking all this. And then I said, I'm going to bring my checkbook so I can have the routing number and the checking account number. And it was in a little cubby that I have. My laptop sits on a box, and my checkbook is in there because I rarely use it. It was there. It wasn't just left out on the table and, you know, or anything like that. So I take it and I put it with the marriage license and I wait. And then yesterday I go and I explained to the man that I was there to drop off the marriage license, but I've learned now if you drop it off with somebody at the window, there's like a security at the door. Now bypass him, he can't help you. At the window, you wait for your number to be called, you go there, and then if you are dropping anything off, you tell them that he has to hand it to that person while you are sitting there in case they want to come out and make sure it's me. If they say that person is not there, you tell them, I will come back. When will she be here? You do not leave that information with somebody because they're going to most likely not file it the right way or put it in the right place. Or they might end up giving it to that person the next day or later in the day or whatever. But that person will be like, I have to collect this while she's in the building. That's the way it's been working for me. So I tell him, here's my marriage license. I need for you to make a copy of it and hand it to, and show her the original. Show my caseworker of the day my original, make a copy, and then I get the original back. That's what I was told. That's what I expect. And then I said I also brought my checkbook because I don't remember her asking me anything about my routing number for my check to be deposited to. So he says, all right. He says, can I just have the checkbook? I said, yes. I just give him the checkbook. First he said, you can void a check. He said, now just give me the checkbook. I was like, okay. So I'm waiting, and then a woman comes out, and she says, Miss Darlene? And I said, yes. And she said, did you have an appointment? I said, yes. And she goes, who did you have? And I said her first name, and she looked at me and she goes, really? I go, yes, really. And then she says, was she nice? And I said, yes, she was very nice. And then it dawned on me, and I said, are you Miss So-and-so? And she takes a couple seconds, and she said, yes, I am. I still couldn't understand because she looked very confused. We didn't meet each other. We were just on the phone on Tuesday, which was the day before yesterday. And I was like, now I'm starting to joke around. I'm like, what's going on? This and that. I said, don't scare me. I says, I felt like I was, completely lost here, that I didn't know what was going on at all. And she goes, no, you're good. She said, I have the license, the marriage license. She said, but the checkbook you just gave us is not what you told me yesterday. And I told her, I said, I don't even remember at all us discussing the routing number. And I didn't even say, because I know I would have left my checkbook out. I mean, that's just the way I am. It's like after a phone call, I'm all nervous and this and that, and I would have probably just left it out and tried to clear my head. But it's possible that I just tucked it back into the little cubby. Anyway, I said, she says, oh yeah, you gave it to me. She says, I wouldn't have been able to process the application without it. That made sense to me. She said, but you gave me a number ending in, and she lists like the 5 last numbers, and I said to her, oh, why would I do that? I was like, that can't even be possible. I said, that's the only checking account that I use, which is in Maine still, and I said that I use for things like this. And she says, well, we already had that number before. And I said, before when? I couldn't nail it down. Like, is she telling me I just gave her that bad number yesterday? Or is she saying it's been in my account forever? Which in that case, I think if she would have talked about routing numbers with me on the phone appointment, I would think she would have said, well, we have a routing number in here. Is it the same? And, it would just be the same. I've had that account since I was like 19 years old. And I was like, I said, I just don't understand what you're saying. I said, I can't believe that I would have just blurted out numbers that meant nothing to me. I mean, if I'm not looking at the numbers on my checkbook, I wouldn't even know off the top of my head how many numbers there are for each, for the routing, and then the other one I know there's a certain amount. I would have never just been able to spew out a string of numbers like that. So I'm very confused, and I wanted to go there today and talk about this to a manager or whatever. So anyway, she ends up saying, I'm going to make a copy of this, and so I'll have it, and I'm going to make sure we use this account for you. I said, yes, please use that account. And I ended up leaving. We might have talked a little bit more, and I thanked her. Oh, she made me go to another window. That's right, all this stuff. I end up leaving, and it just didn't sit well with me. I do believe that I must have given her a number, but I don't. Oh, on the phone. That's right. On the phone, I would have had access. Okay, because the whole application was done on the phone. So I'm going to go with I gave her the number, but it did not make sense to me that I would have given her a number that had nothing to do with anything. I don't have any other checkbooks. That's my checkbook that I've had forever. Well, that account that I've had forever. So I just don't know. And this morning I decide I'm not going to go there. And she wanted me to complain about the person who would not let me make an appointment there. She's like, you need to tell a manager, supervisor, whoever. She says, you've got to tell them how that got messed up. And I thought, I'm just going to be happy to be moving forward, and I'm going to drop this. And maybe at some other point when I'm not so stressed, I could even write a letter. I think I would like that, because then there's proof of what I've said, and then they can't say, well, you said this. And a little bit ago, the phone rings, and it's Social Security, and I was like, fuck. If she tells me I'm losing that August check, because she had called me on the phone to tell me that she fucked that up, and that I was going to start getting the check back to August, and I answer, and Miss Darlene? Yes, it's Miss So-and-so. Yes. I need your bank account number and your routing number. I said, I was there yesterday with that. She goes, yes, I know. She goes, and she keeps saying, but Miss Darlene, you have to understand that I have to double check things and make sure of things. She said, there's 2 different systems here that I'm working on. I'm assuming she's talking about Medicare and my Social Security check. I'm clueless at this point. So she said, I have the bank account info for one of them. She says, and I just want to make sure that we get it right for the other one. And I said, but you have the routing number and the bank number. And I didn't say more than that, because I wanted to say, you made a copy, first of all. You said you were making a copy of a check. And then you just said you did it for the other account. So what the fuck? Now are you going to double check that one? I don't get it. I don't fucking get it. You don't know how this makes me crazy. So I said, she goes, I'm going to read it off to you. I said, well, let me get my checkbook. And so I look at my checkbook, and she reads it off correctly. And so she read it off to me. I don't know. Did she just want to make sure that it was correct because she thinks I'm crazy? Who has the mental issues here, her or me, or a mixture of both? But if she made a copy of the check like she said she was going to do, she should have trusted those numbers. Instead of calling and saying, I need your... It's exactly how she started. I need your routing number and your bank account number. Because I was like, wanting to say, what the fuck? I mean, I was just like, what? She could have said, I know you dropped off the numbers yesterday, but we did have some confusion, I think, on both sides or whatever. Let's just make sure that I'm giving out the right info. She said that the numbers she had also said Atlantic Bank in Sanford, Maine. And I said, you're telling me I told you Atlantic Bank, but yet I gave you all numbers that don't look anything like I have on the check? And she goes, yes. But then it dawned on me that maybe she never took the numbers. Maybe I don't know. She didn't actually submit anything yet. So maybe that's why she just didn't remember. I don't know. I don't think she took it. I don't. I'm back to this now. But when I gave them the check to copy, it's after she came back that she said the info she had in my records was Atlantic Bank, but she can see that on the fucking check. It could be possible that she didn't get that info from me, and she doesn't want to come out and admit that she forgot that info, so she's making it like she got it, but I fucked up. I don't know. I don't know, you guys. I just know that my brain is not that far gone that I would just make up a whole bunch of numbers. Oh, I'm so tired of this. You can't even imagine. You can't even imagine. And there's still so much to do. I still have to go through the supplemental things because I would like some help for, my parents had AARP, but it was $200 a month. And that was back in 2000 when my father died in 2004. I got rid of that because I did the math and I'm like, Ma, that's what, 200, did I say 200 a month? That's 2,400 a year. You never have anything like that out of pocket. And for the hospital, maybe, I don't know, but she didn't, have a lot of hospital stays. So I can only imagine what that would be, but I would love it for it to cover, like they had coverage. They just never had to pay. Anything out of pocket, AARP would cover it. But it was pricey, and I'm sure it is now. I barely ever go to the doctors, but I thought if I could have like a cleaning for my teeth a year and an eye appointment every year, I would actually go if I knew I was paying something for that. And then just, I'd like a plan that's not, that I could pay something, a lump sum, but that the appointments are free, because then I'd go. All right. This is way long already. Let's move on. Let's move on to what? Yeah, so anyway, again, I know nobody cares about what I just talked about, but maybe you do, because maybe you have gone through that kind of shit and you feel like, what the hell? I mean, oh my God. Joe's birthday. He's 59 today. And when we met 2 years ago, I believe my birthday was on, I can't remember. I think it might have been a Thursday or something. But he and I met online. This is how we met, not through a dating site. He was like just coming up as someone I may know, or what is it called? Like not possible friends, people that I could click on because we might have had somebody in common, and not a friend request. I can't think of what I am trying to say. Friend suggestions. That's it. Something like that. And I saw that he had long hair. He was a boy. He was single, lived in Memphis. And I clicked. No interest in chatting with him. I just clicked. And I thought, maybe he'll see some of my stuff. Maybe he'll see where I go. Because back then I was always saying all the places I was going during the weekend or whatever. And, maybe he might just show up one night, and dance. It's no dancing with any of these guys. And he messages me right after, and he says, how do we know each other? Do you know me? Something like that. And I said, no. I said, I just sent you a friend request because you popped up on my Facebook page, and I'm in the area, and I like to go out, and I just like to let people know where everybody's going, what bands are playing, and I just picked you as a friend, hoping we could be friends on Facebook. So he said yes, and we chatted for a few days. Now, at that point, a couple years ago, I actually was involved with somebody that nobody knows about. He asked not to be talked about, and I think my patrons knew a little bit, but it's nobody that I've talked about publicly, and I was spending my birthday with him, an overnighter. He was like a little weekend getaway kind of guy, and I told Joe right away, I said, nothing, he wanted to meet, could we meet? And I was like, well, you could meet me when you're here. But then I found out that he was living in Arkansas at the time, and but he did tell me, I talked about the drinking, and he says, I don't drink. He said, do you? And I said, no. I said, I've been sober so many years, and he said, me too, longer than me. So I liked that about him. Didn't smoke, had a dog, and was working back then. And so he said I could come up sometime this weekend or whatever, and I said, well, actually, I said, I'm going to be with somebody, and I told him I'm spending my birthday with this guy. Hang on a second. Is my cup all dirty? No, it's not. And I said, I'm not breaking those plans, but I planned on talking to that guy and saying, look, where is this going? It's like, I need to figure this out. He didn't care if I was seeing other people. He didn't care at all. In fact, I saw another guy at the same time as him. I was having fun, people. I was having fun. And so I told Joe that, I can't remember, everything, but we ended up deciding on meeting that following Sunday. So that's what we ended up discussing. And we still chatted, and I thought he was being really, really good about the fact that I was spending the night with somebody else. But I told him, this is just no commitment, nothing. And I said, and I am thinking about talking to him about, like, where is this going? Because even if I didn't like Joe, I knew I needed to start finding something better than that. I was just interested in, maybe hanging on to him, but I wanted him to know I'm actually going to be, like, really actively looking now. I'll still hang with you anytime you want, but I just want you to know that. And so I spent the night there for my birthday, and the next day I said something like, I just would like to talk to you about, that was it. He shut me down. Nope, I know where you're going with this. You know where I stand. I'm not having any kind of conversation about anything. He's assuming that I want to fucking marry him all of a sudden, And I said, okay. I got my answer. And I told myself, if I like Joe, I'm just going to tell this other guy that I'm done. And then that Sunday comes, and I'm out with Derek at Neil's for a date jam thing. It was so fun, and I knew I was going to meet Joe that night. He was getting a room because he traveled from Arkansas. I knew this at that point. And I said, no, you can't stay with me. I don't know you. And I said, but we can meet. And so, we texted, kept giving me his, he was very good at texting because he is the anxious type. I know what it's like, but I'm more secure attachment type now. I've gone through the ringer a few times, and I now know that I can take care of myself. If I could handle that split with Joe last summer and walk through that and even see somebody else during that, I'm a different person now. So we met that evening, and then he stayed the night at his hotel room. He got it for 2 nights, and I picked him up the next morning. He obviously had a vehicle, but he didn't know everything, like right around here. And I told him, he said, I'd like to spend the day with you tomorrow. We can do some stuff. And I said, if you don't mind, we'll take my car. I'll pick you up. I like being like in control, and And he says, that's great. So I know I made a video about that we spent the day doing ridiculously easy, simple things, silly. I can hear him waking up, and I loved that. Like, one of the first things is I picked him up, I brought him to my apartment just so he could see where I live. And it's broad daylight, and I picked up the packages I had gotten ready. We go to the post office, and he said, I will bring them in for you. And he took my packages, and then we went to Dollar Tree. He bought me things. We went to, he had flowers for me when I picked him up at the, flowers, when I picked him up at his room. He had flowers, and he had different canned meats because he knew I was carnivore. That's not ideal, but he didn't know. But he wanted to buy me some canned meat. I just thought it was cute and sweet. And he bought some candles, just all kinds of different things. And so we went to the park with Rocket. I saw Rocket the night before he came out with him. And what else did we do? We rode around. We went to Dollar Tree. I think we went and hung out at his room for a little bit. He had some calls to make, business calls. I sat in a chair and just, studied him. And I don't know, did we go? We might have gone to a bar or something that night. Anyway, that's how we met. And I told him, I said, I thought I was really going to be safe with him to just have another thing that it's just like fun and games, not having to be committed. But I didn't want to see anybody else right then. I thought, I'm going to give it a try with him because he said, I will come every weekend. I don't care. It's two and a half hours. It was like, he goes, I don't care. I'll come here anytime. Anytime you want to get together, as long as I'm not working, I will come. So I thought, okay, I'll see him more steady and he will go out with me and do things. And so that's how it happened. So I told the other guy, I'm seeing him and I'm giving it a chance. And I'm not seeing you again. And he fucking fell off his fucking chair. He could not believe that I was actually dumping him. I was like, yes, I am. You've told me it was months, like 4 or 5 months that we were seeing each other. And I said, you made it very clear to me, including when I left you a few days ago, that you didn't want to talk about anything. I said, so what am I supposed to think, And I said, no. And he kept communicating with me for like a couple of months, begging me to come back, see him. And I said, no. It's funny how things work out, right? And then Joe and I have had a weird 2 years. Some of it very, very good. Some of it very not good. And each time, though, we learn more and it gets a little bit better. But I can tell his health is going down. So I'm happy that he has Medicaid for right now. He will see his psychiatrist. I believe that all the things that are going on with him have to be med-related. And it doesn't have to be just his bipolar meds or his antidepressants. It could be a mixture. He's got like 10 different meds for heart, neuropathy, his blood pressure, cholesterol. I mean, all those things. He's got that. He's taking those. So I want to try to get that straightened out because he is always seeing things now. Even though he's back on his full dose of his bipolar med, he'll even, I don't know if it was last night or this morning, he had a cup of milk on his table next to the chair, and he said, did you see that? And I go, what? I mean, he's sitting up. He's getting ready to eat. He goes, the milk just went by me. And he actually reached. He goes, where is it now? I said, it's right there on your table. And, it worries him. It worries him. And while I was eating lunch, he was laying down and he was just brushing stuff. His eyes are closed at this point, brushing stuff off the bed. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he goes, I don't even know. And it's sad. It's very sad. All he wants to do is sleep. And all he is fidgety, talks, doesn't know what he's talking about, and sees things, whether he's sleeping or awake. He could be eyes open and awake, but something, I don't know, something's not right with all that. But then I also question my memory now. I don't know. It's just sad. It's very sad. But we're gonna just try to take care of him the best that we can, and he will see his primary care soon. And I believe he has a heart appointment. I have to make sure I didn't cancel that when he lost his insurance, because sometimes we'll get a message or something or a text with an early reminder, but that could have been his diabetes doctor. Okay, let me get the one-liners. Let's end on a cute note. Okay. But that's how we met, and yeah, when I moved here, my life changed completely. The one thing I know is Joe was not just looking for a one-night stand. He wanted somebody. We kind of both expected it to, just be a one-nighter thing, because I was like, the guy's in Arkansas, 2.5 hours away. This other guy that I was seeing was an hour and a half, something like that. And there were a couple of times he came here, but then it was always me going there. And it's just, I enjoyed it, but then it started to get old. And then I met Joe, and I was like, I'm going to try this. This guy is willing to do anything. He didn't even want me to pay for my own gas when, like, we went out. I'm going to gas up. And I was like, okay, thank you. It's like, And that happened all the time until he was having a really hard time working. Okay, let's see. Joe's one-liners. There's only a few of them. And this is just when I'm either sitting up or it's daytime, and I don't really... some of them I might have made a little conversation, but I was just letting him say things. So this one is, and it only cracked me up because I was like, what kind of move? He goes, whose turn is it to move? And I'm thinking, move out? It's always just your turn, Joe. I'm not moving. Your turn to move. But then we do talk about playing games. We both love to play cards, but we each just play cards separately on our tablets. I don't ever play cards with him. I bought cards. So we need to play cards. So whose turn is it to move? This one said, this one, he was laying in bed and he held his hand up. He goes, where did that little thing of milk come from? And he's showing me something like this. And I would just be like, there's no milk, Joe. I wasn't in the mood to go back and forth with it. And then one night we're just laying in bed. And I'm just trying to sleep, and he goes, you got too much bread. Okay. Because he eats bread. This one says, I don't know how many eggs are here, but I know it ain't 3. Exactly how he says it. I put it down right away so I don't forget. And here's the last one. I'll go get the dog. He doesn't even say Rocket. I'll go get the dog after the gunfight is over at the OK Corral. What the fuck? Oh my goodness. Well, I don't know. He's from the South. Maybe he knows, Western movies. I'm sometimes surprised that he would know things like, what was it he thought was my ex? Oh, Robert E. Lee from the Civil War. He even threw that in. I was like, what are you talking about? So maybe he saw a movie about the OK Corral. I'll go get the dog after the gunfight is over at the OK Corral. But I also liked, I don't know how many eggs are here, but I know it ain't 3. Oh my goodness, these are just silly little things. But yeah, so it's his birthday today, and I said, what would you like to do? He goes, I'm so tired. So he ate some breakfast, and then now he's back in bed. And I, wanted to record this. I'd like to record, when I say crafty video, I mean either, sewing or crocheting or whatever else I come up with. And I can do that a little bit later. I asked him if he'd like to go to a meeting at noon, because he likes to go to meetings, and we've cut back a little bit, but he said, no, I can't. I'm just too out of it. And so I said, if you want to go tonight, we'll go tonight. We watched Survivor together last night, birthday eve, our big party, He never knew about Survivor, and I introduced him to it, and he likes it. It's the last reality show that I watch. I gave up all the others, and I used to watch all of them. And I still hang on to Survivor. I like it, and he likes it, so I like that. And we did try The Amazing Race, because I really love that too. But I don't like to watch these shows alone. I used to have my mother, and my sister watches all of them still. And we used to be able to talk about it, but now she knows I only watch Survivor, so that's the only one we can talk about. But he didn't care for Amazing Race, and I also wanted to try Big Brother. But it's 3 nights a week, and even though I could get it with an antenna, we go to we were going to too many meetings, and I don't like watching after the fact because I never get around to it. All right, you guys, I hope that moving forward, everything goes good with Social Security. I'm very anxious to actually get a check, and I absolutely did the right thing by collecting the money now, because the amount I'm going to collect over the next 2 years, I figured it out with the math. If it really is only a $200 increase, if I waited 2 more years till I was 67, that's supposed to be the max. I think it would be more, because 2 years ago they told me my husband's check was this amount and that it would be this amount now that I'm 65, but it was more. So it probably would have gone up to maybe $400 in 2 years. But if it was only $200 extra for me to catch up to all the money I'm going to bank for the next 2 years with the check they're sending me, it would take me 27 years of checks to recover what I would have been missing these past 2 years. I don't know if that makes sense. But then I thought, what if it's 400? Well, then it's half of that. It would have still taken like 13 and a half years for me to recover. I'm not waiting 2 years when I could die at any time, and then have to wait 13 more before I would be able to recover the 2 years that I lost. I think I could have even started collecting at 63. I wasn't aware of that, but I do remember going there and her telling me, if you were to start collecting your check right now, the check would be zero because of my income. I would have gone way over what I'm allowed, to the point where it would have depleted my entire check. So she said, that makes no sense. You might as well wait until you're not making as much money, and then your check will be bigger. And right now, it was crazy good for me. A little bit before COVID, because I think people started getting sick before we knew about it. I think I had COVID before I even heard the word, because I called my doctor and I'm like, this is weird. I get sick, I feel better. I get sick, I have headaches, I cough, and I'll cough for 2 days and then I don't cough anymore. And then a week later I'm coughing again. And he just thought I was fucking nuts, and he never took me seriously. But COVID years, boy, oh boy, oh boy. People were home, people were watching YouTube, people who like to sew or do other things were watching my videos for that, and they were also buying my fabric, and it has settled down a little bit. And with Joe now, I can kick back and take a little bit of time off, but my plan is to really come up with some super cool new business ideas and work on them, see what works, see what doesn't, and then choose something new, or at least in addition to, in 2 years, when I can start earning as much money as I want. And I'm just gonna fucking work my ass off. It's gonna be my reward. All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll be back with more soon. Bye.